Chapter 16, Part 2 of Moonfleet. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Simon Evers. Moonfleet by J. Mead Faulkner. Chapter 16, Part 2. This brought the diamond buyer to his feet in a moment. "You fool, you cussed fool!" he shrieked. "Are you come here to beard me? And when I say the thing is worth 10 silver crowns, do you fling it to the winds?" I had sprung forward with a half thought of catching Elsevier's arm, but it was too late. The stone flew up in the air, caught the low rays of the setting sun for a moment, and then fell among the flowers. I could not see it as it fell, yet followed with my eyes the line in which it should have fallen, and thought I saw a glimmer where it touched the earth. It was only a flash or sparkle for an instant, just at the stem of that same rushy, red-flowered plant, and then nothing more to be seen. But as I faced round, I saw the little man's eyes turned that way too, and perhaps he saw the flash as well as I. "There's for your 10 crowns," said Elsevier. "Let us be going, lad." And he took me by the arm and marched me out of the room and down the stairs. "Go, and a blight on you!" says Mr. Aldobrand, his voice being not so high as when he cried out last, but in his usual squeak, and then he repeated, "A blight on you!" just for a parting shot as we went through the door. We passed 2 more waiting men on the stairs, but they said nothing to us, and so we came to the street. We walked along together for some time without a word, and then Elsevier said, "Cheer up, lad, cheer up. Thou saidst thyself thou fearest there was a curse on the thing. So now it is gone, maybe you be well quit of it." Yet I could not say anything, being too much disappointed to find the diamond was a sham, and bitterly cast down at the loss of all our hopes. It was all very well to think there was a curse upon the stone, so long as we had it, and to feign that we were ready to part with it. But now it was gone, I knew that at heart I never wished to part with it at all, and would have risked any curse to have it back again. There was supper waiting for us when we got back, but I had no stomach for victuals, and sat moodily while Elsevier ate, and he not much. But when I sat and brooded over what had happened, a new thought came to my mind, and I jumped up and cried, "Elsevier, we are fools! The stone is no sham! 'Tis a real diamond!" He put down his knife and fork and looked at me, not saying anything, but waiting for me to say more, and yet did not show so much surprise as I expected. Then I reminded him how the old merchant's face was full of wonder and delight when first he saw the stone, which showed he thought it was real then, and how afterwards, though he schooled his voice to bring out long words to deceive us, he was ready enough to spring to his feet and shriek out loud when Elsevier threw the stone into the garden. I spoke fast, and in talking to him convinced myself, so when I stopped for want of breath I was quite sure that the stone was indeed a diamond, and that Aldobrand had duped us. Still Elsevier showed little eagerness, and only said, "'Tis like enough that when you say is true, but what would you have us do? The stone is flung away." "Yes," I answered, "but I saw where it fell, and know the very place. Let us go back now at once and get it." "Do you not think that Aldobrand saw the place too?" asked Elsevier. And then I remembered how, when I turned back to the room after seeing the stone fall, I caught the eyes of the old merchant looking the same way, and how he spoke more quietly after that, and not with the bitter cry he used when Elsevier tossed the jewel out of the window. "I do not know," I said doubtfully. "Let us go back and see. It fell just by the stem of a red flower that I marked well. What?" I added, seeing him still hesitate and draw back. "Do you doubt? Shall we not go and get it?" Still he did not answer for a minute, and then spoke slowly, as if weighing his words. "I cannot tell. I think that all you say is true, and that this stone is real. Nay, I was half of that mind when I threw it away, and yet I would not say we are not best without it. 'Twas you who first spoke of a curse upon the jewel, and I laughed at that as being a childish tale. But now I cannot tell, for ever since we first scented this treasure, luck has run against us, John. Yes, run against us very strong. And here we are, flying from home, called outlaws, and with blood upon our hands. Not that blood frightens me, for I have stood to face with men in fair fight, and never felt a death-blow given so way on my soul. But these 2 men came to a tricksy kind of end, and Yet I could not help it. 'Tis true that all my life I've served the contraband, but no man ever knew me to do a foul action, and now I do not like that men should call me felon, and like it less that they should curse thee and call thee felon too. Perhaps there may be after all some curse that hangs about this stone, and leads to ruin those that handle it. I cannot say, for I am not a Parson Glennie in these things, but Blackbeard in an evil mood may have tied the treasure up to be a curse to any that use it for themselves. What do we want with this thing at all? I've got money to be touched at need. We may lay quiet this side of the Channel, where thou shalt learn an honest trade, and when the mischief has blown over, we will go back to Moonfleet. So let the jewel be, John. Shall we not let the jewel be?" He spoke earnestly, and most earnestly at the end, taking me by the hand and looking me full in the face. But I could not look him back again, and turn my eyes away, for I was wilful, and would not bring myself to let the diamond go. Yet all the while I thought that what he said was true, and I remembered that sermon that Mr. Glennie preached, saying that life was like a Y, and that to each comes a time when two ways part, and where he must choose whether he will take the broad and sloping road, or the steep and narrow path. So now I guessed that long ago I had chosen the broad road, and now I was but walking farther down it in seeking after this evil treasure, and still I could not bear to give all up, and persuaded myself that it was a child's folly to madly fling away so fine a stone. So instead of listening to good advice from one so much older than me, I set to work to talk him over, and persuaded him that if we got the diamond again, and ever could sell it, we would give the money to build up the Mohune almshouses, knowing well in my heart that I never meant to do any such thing. Thus, at the last, Elzevir, who was the stubbornest of men and never yielded, was overborne by his great love to me, and yielded here. It was 10 o'clock before we set out together to go again to Aldobrand's, meaning to climb the garden wall and get the stone. I walked quickly enough, and talked all the time to silence my own misgivings, but Elzevir hung back a little and said nothing, for it was sorely against his judgment that he came at all. But as we neared the place I ceased my chatter, and so we went on in silence, each busy with his own thoughts. We did not come in front of Aldobrand's house, but turned out of the main street down a side lane which we guessed would skirt the garden wall. There were few people moving even in the streets, and in this little lane there was not a soul to meet as we crept along in the shadow of the high walls. We were not mistaken, for soon we came to what we judged was the outside of Aldobrand's garden. Here we paused for a minute, and I believe Elzevir was for making a last remonstrance, but I gave him no chance, for I had found a place where some bricks were loosened in the wall face, and set myself to climb. It was easy enough to scale for us, and in a minute we both dropped down in a bed of soft mould on the other side. We pushed through some gooseberry bushes that caught the clothes, and distinguishing the outline of the house, made that way. Then in a few steps we stood on the pelouse, or turf, which I had seen from the balcony 3 hours before. I knew the twirl of the walks and the pattern of the beds, the rank of hollyhocks that stood up all along the wall, and the poppies breathing out a faint sickly odour in the night. An utter silence held all the garden, and, the night being very clear, there was still enough light to show the colours of the flowers when one looked close at them, though the green of the leaves was turned to grey. We kept in the shadow of the wall, and looked expectantly at the house. But no murmur came from it. It might have been a house of the dead for any noise the living made there. Nor was there light in any window, except in one behind the balcony, to which our eyes were turned first. In that room there was someone not yet gone to rest, for we could see a lattice of light where a lamp shone through the open work of the wooden blinds. "He is up still," I whispered, "and the outside shutters are not closed." Elzevir nodded, and then I made straight for the bed where the red flower grew. I had no need of any light to see the bells of that great rushy thing, for it was different from any of the rest, and besides that was planted by itself. I pointed it out to Elzevir. "The stone lies by the stalk of that flower," I said.